A gridlock alert. World leaders descending into Manhattan this week for the United Nations General Assembly. With traffic and protests ramping up, many New Yorkers are reaching for the aspirin. Plus, body camera footage shows officers trying to tase a man with a knife on the subway. But the tasers were not effective. 7 on Your Side investigates the trouble with these devices. And it could be a big breakthrough for treating Alzheimer's disease. It might be on the horizon, in fact. Meet the doctor from our area who is leading the charge.
From ABC-7 New York, this is Eyewitness News Extra Time.
And good evening, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Eyewitness News Extra Time. I'm Bill Ritter. We're going to begin with the UN General Assembly. Leaders from all over the world are convening here in New York to debate some of the world's biggest and most complex problems. There are a ton of them. There's also a ton of security. It is very tight these days. Among the dignitaries now in New York, President Biden, Air Force One touching down at Kennedy Airport in Queens just before 4 o'clock today. Later, the president joined former President Bill Clinton at the Clinton Global Initiative in Midtown. He also has the daughter and the wife of the former president. It's an honor for New York City to host so many important leaders. That we know. But for New Yorkers, this is also a pain because of all the street closures and the gridlock. Roadcam 7 was out on Manhattan's east side earlier, giving us a look at the traffic during the evening rush. Road closures, lots of road closures, lots of police escorts, and lots of protests. The perfect recipe for what we call a traffic nightmare. Eyewitness News reporter Kimberly Richardson has the story from the east side of Manhattan.
President Biden's arrival here on Manhattan's east side late this afternoon set in motion the tightest lockdown of the day. He's here along with other world leaders for the UN General Assembly. Motorcades glided through the area under extremely tight security. Ruth summing it up as only a longtime New Yorker could.
Not easy, but interesting.
Here in the belly of the beast, Frozen does not refer to the movie. There are loads of sprinters, yet no track. The mindset, hurry up and go nowhere.
I mean, I couldn't have picked probably a worse day.
To have this crew pick up his stuff at 48 and second you see today is moving day. Nathan scheduled it months ago, not realizing he'd have all this extra company.
You see kind of this adversity and people, we're trying to get in, trying to get out, but everybody was here, like, I get it. We all got to get a job done, so we're all going to work together. For the next week or so, First Avenue from 34th to 51st Streets is closed. In the 40s between 1st and 2nd can also get tricky. Tuesday morning, Biden is scheduled to address the UN General Assembly, followed by meetings on Wednesday and a reception at the Met before heading back to the White House that same evening. Some say while all of this is inconvenient, planning and walking are key.
I don't want to be on second now, but I am. And if I can keep going on second, I'll get me to my destination on 31st.
Richard is also on foot, had to have all of his FedEx packages x-rayed and checked by canine units. My package is delayed. I should chill out.
That's correct.
One thing you should pay attention to if you're driving here on 2nd Avenue, these motorcades are actually in the bike lane. The bike lane has shifted one lane west, so that's where the bikes are going. In terms of getting around in this area, the next 2 days will be the toughest. Tomorrow, many of those world leaders will address the General Assembly. On the east side, Kimberly Richardson, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
One of the issues the world leaders will be discussing is the crisis in the Middle East. Word from the Pentagon today that additional U.S. troops will head to the Middle East, this in response to rising tensions in the region. Rising tensions is putting it mildly. Israel launching new strikes in Lebanon today, targeting Hezbollah. Israeli warplanes hitting 800 targets just this morning. Nearly 500 people were killed, more than 1,600 wounded, including many children. Eyewitness News reporter Jim Dolan with more on a conflict that threatens to explode into a larger war.
Again today, Israel targeted Hezbollah missile depots and other military sites in Lebanon. But people there say it's not just Hezbollah soldiers being hit, that civilians are dying by the hundreds.
I have a message for the people of Lebanon. Israel's war is not with you. It's with Hezbollah.
Israel says it's warning people in Lebanon to leave areas where Hezbollah keeps its weapons, saying Israel has to protect its people.
For too long, Hezbollah has been using you as human shields. It placed rockets in your living rooms and missiles in your garage. Those rockets and missiles are aimed directly at our cities, directly at our citizens.
More than 350 people killed in Israeli airstrikes today. The bombings have forced schools to close and families to leave their homes and travel to areas they hope are safe. Hezbollah continues to launch missiles at Israel from Lebanon, most of which are taken out by Israeli defense systems, and they say they'll continue to launch missiles as long as Israeli soldiers are in Gaza.
Let us get to a cessation of hostilities in Gaza, and that will hopefully bring an end to all of this.
And that is where the Biden administration's efforts are pointed now, finding a solution to Gaza, which they believe will calm down and cool down the entire Middle East. Still, in the Middle East and around the world, it's hard to find anyone who's terribly optimistic about finding a solution in Gaza anytime soon. Jim Dolan, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Thank you, Jim Dolan. Another shakeup in the Eric Adams administration. New York City's health commissioner, Dr. Ashwan Vasan, is the latest official to step down. Vasan submitted his resignation this morning. He's going to leave office, he says, by the end of the year. He says he's leaving the post he held since 2022 because of personal reasons and having nothing to do with the ongoing federal investigations involving the administration. Mayor Adams praised Vasan for his service and says he was integral in the city's response to COVID and to Mpox. Meanwhile, the NYPD is standing by its interim commissioner as federal investigators searched two of his homes today. Tom Donlan said authorities executed warrants at his residences last Friday. They took materials from an investigation about 20 years ago. He did not disclose what they took, but insisted it's unrelated to his work as the city's top cop.
Served at two residences of his. Don't know what those documents are about, and you have to reach out to the investigative bodies for that, but he's retained his counsel. He said that he'll cooperate, and I take him at his word.
Dolan, by the way, a former FBI agent and director of Homeland Security for New York State. Mayor Adams just tapped him to replace embattled Police Commissioner Edward Caban, one of several members of the Adams administration being investigated by federal authorities. All this as a new report blasts the NYPD over stop and frisk. It says the NYPD is unwilling to discipline officers who continue to implement illegal stop and frisk policies. A court-appointed monitor found police commissioners over the past decade excused the illegal stops, claiming they were in good faith or lacked bad intentions. The New York City Civil Liberties Union says the report shows there's virtually no accountability for police abuse and misconduct, especially towards young people of color. A federal ruling declared stop and frisk unconstitutional back in 2013, you'll recall. An NYPD spokesperson says it'll review the report and provide comments consistent with the court's orders. A busy night indeed, and as we continue with it here on Eyewitness News Extra Time, talk about trouble with tasers.
If it doesn't work, have a plan B. What are you going to do?
Tonight, we're taking a closer look into police tasers after they failed to subdue a toll evader with a knife and led, in fact, to police gunfire. A 700-side investigation shows they are ineffective more often than you might think. Tonight, some important questions surrounding the use of police taser guns in New York City. This after the devices failed to subdue a toll evader armed with a knife earlier this month in Brooklyn. This body cam video shows two NYPD officers deploying their tasers in the subway, but they were not effective. They just didn't work. And that ultimately led to the officers pulling out their guns and then opening fire, shooting several people in the process. 700 Side investigative reporter Dan Krauth has more on what has become a widespread issue that is happening more often than you think.
Put the knife down. Put it down. Put it down. All right. Show me your hands.
Body camera video shows the action two officers took when Darrell Mickles didn't follow their commands after toll evading twice. Less than a minute after catching up with him on the subway platform on September 15th. Both officers deploy their tasers, but both times the devices didn't work to subdue him. It appears from this angle, the suspect pulls the metal probes off his clothing.
The male jumps back off of the train onto the platform, and at one point he's advancing on one of the officers with his knife.
After the tasers failed, both officers then opened fire, striking Mickles, 2 innocent bystanders, and 1 officer was also hit by the other officer's gunfire.
It is a very complicated tool.
Chuck Wexler is the director of Police Executive Research Forum, a group that works to improve professionalism in policing.
We're not saying we're against the taser. We're saying that if you use it, recognize that there's a high percentage of the time it won't be effective. And what are you going to do if it's not effective? I think that's the message from this case.
An NYPD report from 2022, the last year the data is publicly available, shows officers use tasers the most during crimes in progress and with emotionally disturbed people. And when they are used, they're effective 66% of the time. That's usually due to probes falling out, the suspect fighting through the pain, or the officers too far away and missed.
If you use this tool, 40% of the time it is not going to work. What are you going to do? What's your plan B going to be if it doesn't work?
But if it doesn't work, the officers tend to be even closer to the suspect and have fewer options.
He told the suspect to drop the knife.
The NYPD was asked whether they're going to look into the department's taser usage. Here's the response.
We have our Force Investigation Division that looks into every police-involved shooting. So, we go through a thorough investigation after every police-involved shooting.
And Bill, this isn't just a New York City problem. This is a problem with departments across the country. They fail about 40% of the time nationwide.
But this is such a good idea to have these things, right? Because they prevent guns from going off. So why is that? Why is it such a bad 40% time they don't work?
Right. Well, they say you have to be a certain distance away from the suspect.
Okay, that's one.
There's 2 probes. They both have to make contact with the suspect's skin. If you're wearing too much clothing, it won't work. They can pull them out. The suspect could be also amped up, so it might have the proper effect.
They won't do that, yes.
We're also getting reports that in some cases they lower the voltage because people were having heart attacks when they were first issued. So the voltage isn't quite what it used to be. There are a number of different factors that lead to that. And we have a lot of officers that carry them, more than 26,000 in New York alone. But they do have to go through a training course, and you have to be authorized before you can put that taser on your belt.
If the suspect has a gun, they're not going to go with the taser.
Correct.
If they have a gun, hold on. Then you're going to put a gun out there.
Well, there's a whole different sets of training protocols on when to use it, when not to use it, how to de-escalate before you have to take out the taser. So they have to make these decisions in a matter of seconds.
Except when they're not going to work, then it doesn't matter. None of this matters.
Well, what the expert told me today, one of the problems is if they use it and it fails, you're often very close to the suspect that you're trying to detain, and that puts you in a proximity very close to them to make a split-second decision.
Yeah.
Normally you'd be farther away, but you have to be pretty close to actually use the taser.
In this case, 4 people got shot.
Correct.
Yeah.
4.
Dan Krauth, really interesting. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Well, our investigative reporter is welcome anytime.
Thank you.
All right, sir. As we continue with Eyewitness News Extra Time, a promising and unique new approach to treating Alzheimer's disease. We'll tell you what these all means for the patients and the people who care for them next. Tonight, we're going to jump right to a health alert because there's a big development in the research into Alzheimer's disease, something that affects so many gazillion people in this country. National clinical trials at 50 medical centers are about to begin. They're going to be looking into the potential of a synthetic version of vitamin B1 as a treatment for early Alzheimer's disease. This could be giant, and so many people's fingers are crossed about all this. We're going to be joined right now by Dr. Gary Gibson, professor of neurosciences at the Burke Neurological Institute in White Plains. Dr. Gibson, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for asking me.
I'm not going to try to pronounce this name of this treatment. If you could tell me, I'm going to take a guess, benfotiamine, if that's close to it. But as a potential treatment, tell us and tell our audience who are, listen, we know a lot of people have people with Alzheimer's in their families. What does this mean for the whole fighting this disease?
Well, it's very novel compared to the current therapies that have been accepted. And so we think that the Alzheimer brain is vitamin B1 deficient because the transport of the vitamin B1 into the brain is diminished. And what benfotiamine does is raise the blood thiamine 100 times normal. And this allows the thiamine to get into the brain and correct the problems. So both in animal models and Alzheimer's disease, that the ability to transport thiamine into the brain is diminished. And so if you raise thiamine, you overcome that problem. So in animal models, that resolves even in animal models that were made by genetically engineering them to make plaques or tangles, you can diminish those by more than 80% using benfotiamine.
So this is all about B1. We're not talking about any of the other rest of the B vitamins, right? Just B1
That's
period.
correct. Only B1, and B1 won't do this. Only benfotiamine will raise B1 100 times normal. You can't ever do that with just B1.
As I understand it, you've spent nearly 5 years. I'm sorry, you said 5 years on this research. Is it 5 years or 5 decades? I got two notes here.
5 decades.
5 decades. Okay, so more than 5 years. So what do you think this means? How sure are you of it, and what are the downsides, if any?
No, I think what's amazing is that we can actually test it in humans in a rigorous clinical trial. And so we completed a pilot trial done at the Burke Institute. That was very encouraging. And so the reason we're running the multi-center trial is to see if what we found in the pilot trial is real. Those results were remarkable. It's a very safe compound. In the pilot trial, we didn't see any adverse events related to the benfotiamine, which is very unusual for any treatments in any disease, let alone an Alzheimer's disease. So I think it has a lot of promise. But the reason we do a rigorous clinical trial, is to see if it's real.
Okay, and believe me, so many millions of people. I think the number 6.5 million have it right now. It's expected to go up every year until, especially
I think the estimates are by 2050 there'll be 14 million people.
There you go.
Yeah.
And that's the issue. How long does it take to get these clinical trials into something that you could say, hey, Bill, you can try this?
No, so our trial will finish in 2028. And if it works really well, I think it will be in the general population very soon because it's very safe. So I'm very confident we'll replicate the safety. Whether we'll replicate the effects in Alzheimer's disease is why we're doing the trial.
You know, this next question is sort of, it's a hurtful question because I know all about this. My father died from it. So many people are dealing with it. I work with Alzheimer's groups here in New York City, have for many, many years since my father's death. Why is it taking so long, Doctor?
No, many people ask this, but I think COVID provides a really good example. You've seen those beautiful pictures of COVID virus. It's such a simple molecule, and we don't know how that acts. And we're dealing with a disease that affects the brain, which is infinitely more complicated. And so we have learned a lot. It's very amazing what we know, and maybe even more amazing what we don't know. But in spite of that, we can work with what we have and I think propose reasonable treatments. But it's taking a long time. If you compare it to cancer, in some ways it's far more complicated as well. You have many different cell types. And in cancer, the NIH was founded to conquer cancer in 1950.
There you go.
And we're just now beginning to see turnaround, and the amount of money going to cancer is far greater than to Alzheimer's.
No question about that.
These all add up to why we're taking such a long time.
5 decades, more than 5 decades, you have been in this, Dr. Gary Gibson from the Burke Neurological Institute, and we thank you for that. That means most of your adult life you've dealt with this, and fingers are crossed, sir. All right.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for joining us. As we continue with Eyewitness News Extra Time, we're going to take a live look outside. Our Chief Meteorologist, Lee Goldberg, with an update on the weather for the second day of fall. The decorated local athletes from the Summer of Olympic Games are still taking their victory laps. It's amazing, right? Today, gold medal winner and world record holder Sydney McLaughlin got a chance to go back to where it all started. New Jersey reporter Tony Yates was in Dunnell and Middlesex County for the special celebration.
I would say that she was doing good in the Olympics. Yeah.
And?
I would say she would inspire me to try harder.
Wonderful. Okay. And what would you say to her?
I would say she's amazing.
Take a look at this crowd. So many fans and state and local leaders here to honor Sydney McLaughlin on the track where she trained as a young girl, which was renamed Sydney McLaughlin Track here in Columbia Park.
She is a young lady that is I'm a role model for so many different women and young people.
She has been a star on the track from 7 years old. We used to see her run in South Plainfield. Her dad, Mr. Willie, would actually bring her as well as her mom.
Sydney was one of the many American Olympians who were on fire in Paris this summer. She beat her own record and brought home the gold in the 400-meter hurdles and was part of the 4x4 women's relay, also winning gold.
Yes, I had to watch it. It was so exciting.
Oh my gosh, and what was your favorite part?
When she won, I was just jumping so much and I was so happy.
Do you know she broke her record?
Yeah.
Did you see her run this summer?
Yes, I did.
Tell me about it.
And she was very impressive.
This is more than just her hometown of Dunellen turning out. People from Union Catholic Regional High School in Scotch Plains, where she attended, are here, and fans from towns across central Jersey here to honor the hometown daughter who always finds a way to come back and inspire.
I love Sydney McLaughlin so much, and she's the best runner in the world.
I want to simply say God bless you, Sydney, in continuing on and doing His will.
Well, Sydney is 25 years young. In 2028, she's going to be 29 years young. We are hoping that she is going to repeat her successes when the Olympics go to LA. In Dunellen, Tony Yates, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
That's amazing. Time for the weather. Here's Chief Meteorologist Lee Goldberg.
Some clouds today and rain showers back in as we look over lower Manhattan or toward lower Manhattan through a few light raindrops out there. But visibility is good. You can see to Miss Liberty, and visibility is always an indicator or marker of rain intensity or precipitation intensity. It's very, very light. Easterly wind at 9, humidity 56%. See, the air isn't all that saturated. And the high temperature today only 67 degrees. That's after 74 yesterday, and that's our average. We'll get back to that later in the week. We're not done with warm weather. 650 tonight, the temperature, and sunrise tomorrow in 646. First drop since the 7th of the month. Watch for slick spots, especially north and west, even on the sidewalk. I mean, if it's a little damp, could be a little extra slippery. Wettest period, I think, was going to be later Wednesday into early Thursday. I think we're going to get a drenching, not all of the area, better chance north and west. That's going to go into early Thursday. And then the tropics. Future Helene, probably named by tomorrow morning, could be a major hurricane in the Gulf midweek, headed toward the Florida Panhandle or Big Bend area. So right now, light patchy showers around, although a few of those showers coming out of Kearney right now and getting toward lower Manhattan, northern part of Staten Island. Another shower that's leaving the east side over Long Island City right now as well. And a few steadier showers over Orange County going into Putnam, Rockland, and into Westchester over the next hour. Another batch over Warren County here. I think we'll deal with these through the first part of the night, then the weekend. This front off to the west is going to take almost all week to get through. That's why we have a couple of shower threats. But tomorrow, I don't think there's a lot going on. We leave the showers behind later tonight. There are actually some breaks in the clouds tomorrow. It's still cool, only upper 60s during the day, and there might be a sprinkle off to the west during the afternoon hours. Chance of some showers getting in here north and west tomorrow night into Wednesday morning. Then another round of showers later Wednesday and early Thursday would likely be the steadiest, and I think that's going to be more north and west. Another day in the 60s on Wednesday. So notice the steadier showers, which I think are going to be more concentrated north and west, but we'll probably get wet Wednesday night into Thursday morning. Rest of the day on Thursday, we actually try to break the clouds up in the afternoon. It becomes warm and humid. At the same time, Helene is approaching Florida, potentially as a major hurricane. Right now, the storm is called a potential tropical cyclone. It's number 9, 35-mile-per-hour winds. It will likely be named overnight into tomorrow morning. Cat 1 hurricane in the Gulf on Wednesday, potentially a major hurricane anywhere from Panama City to Tampa as we go into Thursday afternoon. Huge storm surge, big-time flooding and damaging winds, maybe 115-mile-per-hour max sustained winds, then takes a left-hand turn, soaks the Tennessee and Ohio Valley. All we see, maybe some high clouds later in the week. We still have a high rip currents, and that's actually going to go through the day on Wednesday. Air quality is good, but the UV index hit a 3. Here's your 7-day. 57 tonight, early showers, then mostly cloudy and cool. Not a washout tomorrow, breezy and cool. Clouds breaks the sun and a sprinkle around, and then tomorrow night there'll be a shower around late, especially north and west. Wettest Wednesday afternoon into Thursday morning. Hopefully late day breaks on Thursday. We're back in the 70s and a beautiful stretch Friday into the weekend. Again, just some high clouds from Helene.
And thank you, Lee. That wraps up this edition of Eyewitness News Extra Time. We thank you for watching. I'm Bill Ritter. We're back live on Eyewitness News tonight after the football game. We'll see you then. Until then, have a great and safe evening. Look at that. My gosh.